I have this shed. It's about 50 years old, and it's a little under 5 feet long and about 3.5 feet wide. And as you can see, it's made out of metal. It used to be on the patio, and the reason that they put it on the patio was because it doesn't have a floor. But you can see both doors are broken. This door is actually falling off. And so I just put some pavers down and set it on the pavers instead of on the dirt. And I have a lot of stuff in here. And but the worst thing about this shed is that it's got a gable roof. And so every time it rains, the water washes down the roof and onto the patio. So I can't put anything on the patio without it getting wet. So I'm going to build a new shed that is 4 feet by 8 feet. So it'll be exactly one sheet of plywood for the floor. And I'm really limited by the roof over the patio. So I can't go more than 7 feet total height. There will be a cost breakdown at the end. And this is what it's going to look like when it's finished. This shed is going to be portable, so I'm going to build it on 2 skids that are made from 4x4s, and they will be 8 feet long. I'm going to bevel the ends so that it slides easily when I drag it. But when you cut the ends of this pressure treated lumber, you have to seal it with something in order to make it rot resistant. Now I'm just going to copy this one over about 3 feet. I'm going to use 2x6s for the floor because I'm only spanning 3 feet. And I want my overhang to be 6 inches on each side. I'm going to copy this floor joist to the other end and then space the ones in the middle at 16 inches on center. Now I'm just going to add a rim joist on either side, and because the floor joists are 3'9", the overall size is going to be exactly 8 feet by 4 feet. Now I'm just going to add some brackets to tie the floor joists to the skids so that it's all tied together. Later on, I will add some eye bolts to the front of the skids so that I can drag it. Now I'm going to add some blocking down the center. This isn't really necessary because it's such a small structure, but it's just going to add some rigidity to the floor. Now I'm going to put a sheet of 4x8 plywood on top of the decking that I just built. And I will make everything look like actual wood. Now I'm going to start on the back wall because the back and the side walls are the same height and the front wall is going to be a foot taller. Here I'm using 2x3s instead of 2x4s because they are lighter and cheaper, and it gives you a little bit of extra space, and you can find these at any home improvement store. And I'm going to space the studs at 16 inches on center. Then I can just copy some of the studs in the top and bottom plate over to the side walls and cut them down to size. There's not going to be any windows in these walls, just one door in the front wall. Now I'm just going to copy the back wall to the front wall and make it 1 foot taller. Later on, I'm going to put a shed roof on the shed, and I'm not sure why it's called a shed roof. I don't think it has anything to do with a shed, but a shed roof only has a single slope as opposed to a gable roof, which has two slopes. Now I'm going to make a 36-inch opening for the door with two studs on either side. I'm just going to use a single header above the door because there's not a lot of weight that's going to be on this header. Normally, I would cut out the bottom plate under the door, but I'm not going to do it here because it's going to protect the plywood underneath. Now I'm going to put on some rafters, and there's a really easy way to do it. Just lay the board on the front and back wall. Then draw a line up from the inside of the high wall and a horizontal line 1.5 inches up from the top plate. Then cut out that little triangle. I want my overhang to be 6 inches, so I'll just cut off the excess. Then just drop the rafter down onto the top plate. Make all the rafters the same and copy them over 16 inches on center. Now I'm just going to put two little studs above the side walls. It doesn't have to be notched, it's just there to have something to nail your exterior sheathing to. Then I can copy those over to the other side. Now I can put on the exterior sheathing. You can use plywood or OSB or whatever else you can find, but just make sure that it's painted and well protected from the weather. And you're going to have to notch out around the rafters. Just make sure your sheathing covers your floor joists. Now I'm going to cut out the sheathing where the door is, but I'm going to save those two pieces to make the door. Then I will put a piece of sheathing on the side, and I will cut it down to match the slope of the rafter. Then I can just copy that to the other side because it's exactly the same. Now the sheathing goes on the back, and save the excess pieces because you will need them later for the roof. You don't need to have blocking above the top plate, but it will give you something to nail the plywood to. Now we can put plywood on the roof. And I'm just using 1/2 inch plywood for the roof and the walls because It's such a small structure, but I did use 3/4 inch for the floor. Now you can finish the roof with whatever you want. I'm just going to use shingles here with tar paper underneath. Now I'm going to take those two pieces of plywood that I cut out for the door opening and make the door out of it. I'm just going to use some 2x3s on the back of the door to hold everything together. Now I'm going to paint my shed. I think a nice orangey red color would look good. A little bit too bright, maybe a green color. No, that looks like a dumpster. How about brown? Yeah, brown looks good. Now I'm just going to add some trim to make it look finished. And you want to overlap the corners here and put in a goodly amount of caulk. Now I'm going to add some hinges so my door doesn't fall off. And I should probably have a door handle so I can open the door. This is like an impressionist painting. It's just the impression of a doorknob. I'm not really digging the white trim. Maybe black trim. Yeah, black trim. That looks good. And there you have it. And now for the cost breakdown. I got all these prices from my local Home Depot. Now, in the drawing, I used plywood, but if you use OSB, it's going to be about $100 cheaper. You might be able to source some cheaper materials, which would bring down the price even more.